Yeah, so we are recording and we're in. Hello, everyone. It's Cam from Arsenal Theory Podcast, and I have my first guest on the channel. Been
Well,
lining
hey,
this up for a while. Proper old school gooner, long time
old school.
friend, Tony
Absolutely.
Monk.
Hello,
Tony, say hello.
everybody. I'm Tone. Pleased to
And
be here. Pleased to be
absolutely
here.
fantastic. Now, me and Tone have known each other for a long time. It's got to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
over 20 years, isn't it?
It
25.
is over 20 years. I was thinking it is going back because 2006. That was when we went to Italy.
Yeah.
So that's coming up 20 years. That's 3 years short. That's 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And we didn't go away to Italy together the first day we met. So
No, that
going
would have
back
been a bit much. we definitely didn't.
Yeah,
It's weird,
that's
isn't it?
right.
How like you kind of gravitate to other Arsenal people. Like a lot of the friends that I've had, like a lot of the close friends I've had over the years that are into football happen to be Arsenal fans. I don't know if it's coincidence or
It's
if
not.
it's
I mean, I
actually the
find
ones you
it.
link.
I'm not one of these look, don't get me wrong. I've spent many a time chanting "We hate Tottenham," but deep within my heart, is there a real visceral hatred for it? No, but I still find it difficult around these people. I don't feel I could welcome one into my heart. In the same way, it's there's something about having a best mate that was Spurs. Cool, could it? No, it was
It
at
wouldn't
some
work.
point. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. At some point, there's going to be a game, and someone's going to say something that's personal. Even remember Sid came round to the Champions League final. Is there a more amiable bloke than Sid?
Yes.
That's why I brought
He started getting. This was the
really
Barcelona.
nasty.
He started
Really nasty.
really
Yeah,
mellow guy, really chill guy, and he kind of just turned into an arsehole for like 2 hours.
He really did. He really did. He brought his Chelsea with him. He didn't. We thought, it's old Sid. He's a relaxed guy. Sit down, Sid, have a few beers.
Chelsea with him.
No, he started, didn't he? He started. We could have probably fell out. That's what football can do, even if you're not the most vociferous fan.
It's interesting you talk about Spurs fans, because one of the things I feel about Spurs fans, you've heard of inferiority complex. I think if I had a Spurs fan as a mate, I'd have a superiority complex.
Yeah, you would.
Because
you would.
I remember talking with you once many years ago. We were talking about what is it to be a Spurs fan, and we were trying to think of is it like your poor cousin, cousin down the road that just isn't really doing very well.
There's a bitterness about them.
Yeah.
I always see them as kind of like a serf from the Middle Ages. They're like, looking up, with a real with this bitterness and this anger, this resentment that they can't be what they want to be, and it comes out in them. There's a certain type, there's an arrogant type of Spurs fan, but they're just kind of deluded. Those that are actually aware of what's going on, they're just constantly bitter. And you don't want to be around people like that, do you?
No. And also the Queen supported Arsenal. And I think that really just sums it all up. To me, it's like the Queen supported Arsenal. She had us over to Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different class. It's a little bit like Villa and Birmingham City. Like Villa and Birmingham City is the closest thing I'll get, I think, to the kind of the Arsenal-Tottenham thing, because Villa have always been the better club. But there's a certain class about Villa. There's something about Aston Villa, and there's something.
European Cups help.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something about Birmingham City as well that's just second rate. It's just bottom to the top. Within that, there's just they're also Rans. They kind of always will be. So no, it's difficult. So fortunately, I've never even come close to having a Tottenham fan as a friend. I'm trying to think back. In fact, it's quite interesting because I've got some cousins that I never used to see. Right. So growing up, we had these cousins, but we never would see them. We'd see them at the odd wedding, that sort of thing. And my uncle Dave was an Arsenal fan. So he's the father of some of these cousins, yeah? He's a proper London geezer. Used to work as a milkman around the West End, lived in Peabody buildings just off the Strand. Proper Arsenal fan, bond holder, season ticket holder, right? Top bloke. Wish I'd knew him better. didn't know him that well. And after his funeral, of course, the Facebook thing. So his son, Joe, is now on the Facebook thing. And of course, they've moved to Tottenham, as people do. You move out from London.
Yeah.
You know, if you live to the west of London, you move to Slough, Maidenhead, who knows where. They move north. So this lad grew up as in Tottenham as a Tottenham fan. And right from the off, it caused an antagonism. There was always something, you know, because one of the things you try and bond over is a bit of football banter. But there's no such thing as innocent football banter amongst opposition fans, certainly not between Spurs and Arsenal. No. So there's always that sort of an edge to it, that kind of, suffice to say, we ain't even Facebook friends anymore. It's done. There's no going back. There's no going back.
It's so silly, isn't it? It's so petty.
So petty, but then so visceral and so real.
There's no other sport. Like, you know, you might have been Chris Eubank and I might have been Nigel Benn fan. You know, you can't really.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else like
the same thing. And that's the danger. We're going to talk about culture a little bit later. Yeah. And the danger is that you lose that. You lose it, you know, it becomes like, you look at the American football, it's a day out for the family. And what's wrong with that? What a wonderful thing. A day out for the families, little toddlers running around, you got your picnic hamper, it's beautiful. But as much as that's beautiful, it loses something. The more it becomes that, the more it loses the tribal element, because it's that tribal thing that kind of makes us feel that way. And it's a double-edged sword, because tribalism can lead to all sorts of horrible things. But it's a very visceral thing, and it's something that you enjoy when you're part of it. No, and there's a generation of fans growing up that don't, I think, have it quite the same way, for better or worse.
Well, we were going to talk about it later, but as it's come up, I say let's just bring it up to the front here. One of the subjects was obviously, because Tony, you've been a fan for many, many years, a lot longer than I've been a fan.
Been alive.
We wanted to discuss, you know, how the Arsenal culture has changed over the years. So, you know, before we went live, I was saying how, you know, for me, Arsenal culture now it's like a French chic fashion, very, very
cosmopolitan.
kind of cosmopolitan.
In
that's
every sense of the word.
Yeah, that's exactly the word. And I couldn't put any other football club even in that bracket. Like, I wouldn't put United in that bracket. I wouldn't put Liverpool. No. I can't really, even Chelsea, I wouldn't necessarily put in that bracket, although they might be the closest. There isn't one really. It's really our own. It's really our own. The thing with
Chelsea is they've still got that kind of, they've still got that scummy racist element very much in their fan base, which we've never had.
No.
And certainly don't now. It's still there in Chelsea. And as long as they've got that element, and it isn't just characterised by racism, but is the things that go around that, Chelsea won't be able to reach our level of sophistication. I
Definitely. You can't be a sophisticated racist.
You can't be a sophisticated, never been a sophisticated.
very, very difficult. When you were like growing up as a gooner, what was the Arsenal culture? What years were you talking? What years were we talking about here? And what was it kind of like back then?
I first felt an affinity with Arsenal, probably always growing up. I can't remember a time when there wasn't one, because my mum, not my dad, my mum used to go to Arsenal just after the war in the 1950s.
Never knew that.
Yeah, 1950s. And I don't know how many times. I mean, often your parents' anecdotes involve around one thing that happened, but they tell you so many times you imagine that they did it every week. But she would tell me about going to Highbury and be lifted up and passed down to the front so that she could see. Yeah, just well away from where her family had taken. I think it was her uncles that had taken her or whoever. So that kind of was ingrained. They were from North London. I'm originally from Claremont Square, which is posh now, but it wasn't posh then. Claremont Square is right opposite Angel Tube Station. So from round there. So it was always Arsenal, but I had a narrow escape, because when I went to school, I can remember being in junior school. I mean, early years of junior school, 9, 10. And I can remember us spending one playtime, the whole of us, singing Blue is the Colour, right? This is a big confession to me. Yeah, I was only young.
I actually have a confession to match that. Once you finish.
Yeah, Blue is the Colour. Football is the game. We love the song. It's very catchy. You've got to admit, it's very catchy, wasn't it? It's very catchy.
Well, that's why they have them.
That's why they have them. Correct. That's why they have them. But I didn't get drawn in really. And then I suppose the first time I really felt a proper Arsenal fan and started going regularly was the late 70s. So this would have been 79, I reckon. So we're under the tail end of the Terry Neal years.
Right.
But great times. We just won the FA Cup. I can remember standing on the North Bank and everyone started singing, and when Pat Rice stepped up to lift the FA Cup. Oh, I was there. I wasn't fucking there, was I? Well, to be honest, lads, I wasn't there. Everyone joins in. So I can remember that. And I can remember seeing Liam Brady and feeling like we've got the best player in the world.
Yeah.
This guy, watching Liam Brady was the first time. And then you start going and you become part of it and it becomes part of you. And I can remember you're very aware of the club's culture, your own culture, in that we're not really that hard at Arsenal. You know, we're not Millwall. I can remember going to a wedding, funny enough, one of those cousins I was telling you about, and quite young. And one of the lads there had a Millwall T-shirt on. I mean, who wears a football T-shirt to a wedding? You wear a suit or something nice, not Millwall.
A Millwall fan.
Yeah, Millwall fan would. Exactly. And I remember being quite scared and thinking, I hope he doesn't come over to me. And I knew Arsenal weren't that. And we weren't what West Ham were, or even Spurs were in terms of the football hooliganism thing. And the football hooliganism thing was important in the late 70s. You had to have a firm and you had to have a good team as well. And your firm was almost as important. We had a thing called... I might have even got the name wrong. It's called Denton's Gang. And people would point to this guy, this black guy, huge guy, known as the Bear. There might even be, I think it's a statue to him or something now, but he was like our guy, our tough guy
right.
that you could rally round. And I can remember that being, that was kind of like an important thing. But culturally inside the ground, there was always that thing of the other lot are going to try and take your end. And it would happen and they would be repelled. And when you'd be part of that, the feeling inside you is something that you will never get in an inside all-seater stadium with blokes going, put that fag out, please, mate. Can you sit down? You miss it. That's all great. But that feeling of, oh, my God, the fighting's now 15 yards away from me. Should I go and get involved?
I can't imagine.
And they're trying to get into your end. They're literally, your end's being steamed by this lot.
And what are they going to do if they get there?
Oh, it's going to kick off. What would normally happen is, if you did lose your end, it would just be embarrassing because you'd have 70 or 80 fans from the other side. Normally not many more than that. That's all it takes. In the middle of 4,000 at the North Bank or wherever it might be, with everyone just moved away from them and feeling quite awkward. That's what would normally happen. Once they weren't bringing in cudgels and axes and people weren't actually getting slayed and limbs chopped off. But it felt very real. You felt very, very alive when that sort of thing was going on. And that's part of the kind of the fan culture of those days. And I say, you can say, isn't it? Because look, I've taken my little niece to go and see Arsenal since then and was very glad for the fact that I could and that she wouldn't have to experience that. But it lost something as well when it lost that kind of edge to it. But you said you had an embarrassing tale, sorry, about your non-allegiance to Arsenal.
Well, I had a close escape. I hadn't thought about this for a long time. So growing up, my next door neighbor, one of my next door neighbors, and my older brother, they're both quite a bit older than me, and I looked up to both of them quite a lot. The neighbor was a Liverpool fan, and my brother was a Man United fan, and he got me a Man United digital watch.
Oh, dodgy.
So I would have been, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah,
something like that. I remember the watch as well.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, wow, this thing's amazing. You know, it's got a stopwatch on it and all this stuff. And luckily, it didn't take.
Didn't take.
I have no idea why I'm an Arsenal fan.
Really?
I think the only thing I can trace it back to, and it kind of makes sense, is it had the word arse in it. And I found that funny.
You've always liked arse, haven't you, Ken?
I've always liked an arse. And I think I found that funny. And I think that's what just made me laugh and hooked me in. Because my parents went into football. I didn't know any Arsenal fans. My other next door neighbour on the other side, Roland, he was a big Arsenal fan, but he was younger than me. So, when I'm like 5 or 6,
you're not going to hang around with 2-year-olds.
Yeah. So, so I think it was, honestly, I think it was the name. I just think it was the name, and I was just drawn to it.
Can be anything.
And then just stayed with it. And it's funny you say about like you lose something, that maybe that sense of danger or whatever. It's not the same. I think the closest I've ever experienced that was at an England game. I've gone to see England once, and after it, I said I'll never go see him again.
Well,
now maybe it's changed. It was just so racist.
Right? Yeah.
It was so racist, and it was at Wembley. It was England versus Romania. And I remember the game. I remember going to see it, and I just couldn't. I could believe what I was hearing. I wasn't,
what year was this? Excuse me, I just want to move something out of the way.
Yeah, no worries. It would have been mid to late 90s.
Oh, okay. Way back.
Something like that, yeah, mid to late 90s. Do you remember when Tottenham had a couple of Romanian players?
Yeah,
so they had Dumitrescu and a couple of others as well.
Yeah,
and it was around that
pre-Berbatov. Oh, he's Bulgarian, wasn't he?
Way before then. Way before then.
Yeah.
I'd have been maybe 15, something like that.
Did he play for Tottenham?
No, he didn't play for Spurs, but he might have been playing in this game.
Yeah.
And it was when you had like Rob Lee. Rob Lee was playing for England. So when Newcastle had Keegan, it was around that period.
Yeah.
And it was just it was just, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, and I wasn't used to it. And I was like, I'm not sure about this. And I haven't been to it.
Did it seem accepted by the people that were in the crowd? Because
that
would be tolerated now.
No.
I don't think it would be tolerated. Well, when did I last go and see an England game? You get a different set of fans at an England game. It's the small clubs that go. It's not Premiership fans. You won't see very many Scousers.
Okay, so no, but it was interesting. So you started following Arsenal then?
Properly, late 78, 79, when I started going. There was a little group of us that we'd all gone to school together. We'd all gone to church meet school together in Datchet. Kind of little group of friends. So there's me, Stephen Marriott, Stephen French, Fishface, Nigel. Fishface. That was no, Nigel Tierney, Nigel Kearney, Fishface. He did have a face a bit like a catfish, but he couldn't help that. He couldn't help that, bless him. So we used to go to the Arsenal, and it was great because we'd only decide on the morning. The phone calls would go around on the morning, 10 o'clock, whenever it is. You up for it? Yeah, I'm up for it. Yeah. And just to be able to jump on the Piccadilly line, Slough, Paddington, Piccadilly line, couple of pints, turn up, £5 on the gate. Literally, I remember handing over a £5 note and you're in. There was no booking. In you went. You're in the North Bank.
That's definitely changed.
Oh, that's changed a little bit, hasn't it? Don't forget the capacity was. I'm trying to think they must have let in 55,000 into Highbury back in those days. They must have let 55,000 in there.
Right.
When the crowd would sway, didn't matter how big you were, you could get lifted off your feet, and you could. It's like being out to sea, lost at sea. You'd be lifted off your feet, and you would find yourself 30 foot over there.
Mm.
There's not too much. And when people are packed in that tightly, that's exactly what happens. It all starts to move around, and don't get me wrong. There are barriers, there's crush barriers, and all of a sudden there was never any issue with that. But part of being packed in so tight was kind of part of it as well. The smell of the hot dog. Everyone's got a fag on the go. It's just such a thing that once you get to that stage, you're now going semi-regularly. There's no going back now. You're an Arsenal fan now.
Yeah,
gangster now.
All my life, all I ever wanted to be was an Arsenal fan.
That's right. Yeah, gangster now. Can't start late.
Do you remember then when Wenger arrived?
Yeah. Oh, this is way back later after.
I mean, obviously this is like 20 years after that.
We've got the whole George Graham period.
We had the George Graham period.
People forget his 2 championships that we won under George Graham. It's almost like it's been erased from history. What did Wenger win? 3?
Wenger won 3. Considering the amount of time he was there, it's not really.
George Graham had 2, and one time we had 3 points deducted.
Yeah,
and we still won
at Old Trafford.
Correct. And then when we went to Liverpool, we went to Anfield and won it at Anfield. And we had to win. We had to win the game out. And it was live on the telly.
I know. I remember watching it.
live on
I
the
swear
telly.
it was on a Friday as well. I think it was on a Friday.
It was a
It was a
Friday.
Friday.
It was a
I
Friday. We had to
remember.
win by 2 goals.
Yeah, well, yeah. I remember watching that on the floor. My dad was sat behind me. I don't know when I don't remember my mum being there, and I had my Arsenal hat on.
Yeah.
And watching the game, and I just remember I couldn't believe it when Mickey Thomas scored the goal.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, what that was 89, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
I would have
I
been
think it was 89.
9 or 10.
I'm 27.
Yeah, I'd have been 9 or 10. And I remember because my next door neighbor was a Liverpool fan.
Ah, great.
I remember
Did you
going over
invite
to
him?
Lord it, proper 10 years old, like.
Yeah, you see, it started.
He wasn't happy. He started blaming his little sister for Liverpool losing. He was a real sore loser. I told you not to watch the game with me.
Nothing more superstitious than a football fan, is there?
Yeah.
Honestly. No, you're right. And it was so those great George Graham years, and they were great years, the George Graham years. So I'm starting off with Terry Neal. Terry Neal's there, and this was like London Irish at the time. I must admit, I looked it up today because I thought, oh, I'll bring this up, but I kind of got all the names anyway. We fielded a team when we won. Let me get this straight. I think it was when we won. Oh, I might get this wrong. Won the FA Cup, I think, 79. We got to 3 successive FA Cup finals and won the last one. And over half the team were Irish. And the manager, was it Terry Neal? Yeah, it was Terry Neal at the time. So we had Pat Rice, Pat Jennings, Liam Brady, Sammy Nelson, David O'Leary, Frank Stapleton, and Niall Quinn might have come a bit later, or he might have even been there at that time. Niall Quinn was a little tiny bit later, possibly. It was London Irish, and it was happy days. It was decent under Terry Neal. Then George Graham came. That was the big revolution. When George Graham came, things changed, and we were really taken seriously. And I think his 2 championships do get overlooked.
No, they do. I mean, just quickly on that London Irish. Were these Irish or Irish?
Not Andy Townsend Irish.
I mean,
they all had Irish accents.
Okay, I get it.
We're not talking Andy Townsend, who never had any connection with
Ireland.
I know exactly where you're going. These guys all had Irish accents.
Okay.
You've heard David O'Leary.
Is there anything wrong with not having an Irish accent?
No, but I want exactly. I know what you're saying. I know where you're really from. People
yeah, exactly. Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, a lot of people claim to be Irish. Yeah, they visited once or twice. A distant grandfather somewhere. No. These were all Irish. Exactly. Half of them from Northern Ireland. Not even from the Republic, from Northern Ireland. Terry Neal was for Pat Jennings. I think was from Northern Ireland. There's probably only a couple of them that are actually from the Republic.
I think with George Graham, I think one thing that doesn't help with his legacy, a couple of things. Firstly, how it all ended.
Brown envelope.
It's not.
They were all at it.
Either way,
more than anybody.
Either way,
he's the one that got caught. He's the one that got caught.
And also Spurs. A lot of times, the Spurs one I almost think is comical. Like the only time they could get a trophy, they had to get an Arsenal guy.
Didn't bother me. That's right. Yeah.
Didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But also there was several stretches where the football was horrible.
Where you think?
It really. There's a reason why there's a song 1-0 to the Arsenal. Now, I don't know if that song was around pre George Graham.
It wasn't as bad as they say. It wasn't as bad as they say. I remember
it being pretty bad. some of the football under Graham was so defensive.
We did what you have to do. How do you build a winning team? How does anybody build a winning team? From the back. That's how every winning team is built from the back.
J'agree. However, you saw the change when Wenger came in.
And all he did was his glory years with George Graham's back 5.
Absolutely.
He never bought a defender. He never bought one good defender.
No, that's not true, Tony.
Well, Ashley
Sol Campbell?
Yeah, Sol Campbell. Yeah, okay. Yeah, granted, Sol Campbell. Okay. So,
irrigation,
law and order. Apart from that, what did Wenger ever do for us?
Okay. Maybe this is an age thing. Like I would have been towards the end of the George Graham era. I would have been teenager, kind of early teenager, like 12, 13, something like that. And
Yeah.
looking at Man United, like would have had like the team of like Kanchelskis and Ince and Mark Hughes and all that kind of
Oh, you remember the
free-flowing
Ince
stuff.
years? That's the early Fergie years.
Yeah, the early Fergie years. Yeah, you know, Brian McClare.
Yeah.
All that kind of lot.
Dennis Irwin.
Irish again, you know,
Yeah,
Dennis
Irish
Irwin.
again. That's right.
And we weren't really on that. We weren't really on that level. It felt like there was some dark periods. One thing though is, I mean, he did win 2 league titles and he won the Cup Winners' Cup as well.
European title.
And we were real big underdogs in the final of that game against Parma. I remember reading and watching every single piece of build-up I could for the previous like 3 months for that game, and no one gave us a. I remember watching Dennis Law.
Our chances against any kind of cheese. So you're right. It was back in those days. Yeah, and Parma, when you look back on it, not a European giant, are they?
They had a good team at the time. They had Asprilla, Thomas Brolin, and still remember Serie A back then was the place to be.
It was the place to be. Correct.
It was the place to be.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Dennis Law on ITV doing a breakdown of the game, basically going, Arsenal got no chance.
No
Parma
chance.
are going to smash them. And from what I remember of the game, we robbed them.
Don't matter.
It don't matter.
Even better.
It doesn't.
Even sweeter.
Yeah,
he didn't deserve it. Even better.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
Absolutely. That's right. You find a tenner in the gutter to this day. That cheers your day up.
Yeah.
Really does.
Yeah.
You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it.
He did. But so then obviously, I think what didn't help George Graham when the bung happened is we weren't top of the league. You know, I do remember the fans being a bit restless. You know, the club weren't really spending much money. And it felt like we were getting further behind.
Yeah.
And then they put the caretaker guy in.
Bruce Rioch, wasn't it?
Oh no, we had we had Bruce Rioch. I completely forgot about him. How embarrassing is that?
It was Bruce Rioch that technically it still might have been Wenger that brought Bergkamp. When
it was him.
That was the change.
He bought Bergkamp. No, you're right, because David Platt. He bought Platt as well, because I had a paper cutting.
Platt's acrobatic overhead kick in the World Cup. So everyone was David Platt mad at the time.
We bought him from Italy. He went to Bari.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And Sampdoria.
Sampdoria.
He was playing at Sampdoria, and I remember I used to have a paper cutout. I was so excited we'd signed David Platt.
Oh,
I
more
cut
so
out
than
a clipping and stuck it up on my wall.
Yeah. Great
but
days.
He picked the wrong fight. It was never going to work for him.
What for?
It was never going to work for him. He picked a fight with Ian Wright, and David Dean has pretty much said, you know, it came down to a choice of Ian Wright or Bruce Wright.
Ian Wright, every time, in our hearts and our souls to this day.
Yeah.
Right. Is there a more loved player in the history of Arsenal? Certainly from your generation to my generation, Wright is the one we always said he's one of us. He's not one of you never felt he was like one of these Gary Lineker types. He was, because I think he broke through so late. He didn't get his professional break till he was 23. He got his break at Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Never played in any academy, wasn't an apprentice anywhere.
No.
Was just about to give up. And I remember an FA Cup final where that cup final, I can't remember who it was against. It's Crystal Palace against someone big.
United.
It was United. And it was all about Brighton.
It was a replay, didn't it?
It was a replay. It was Brighton Wright. Ian Wright and Mark Bright ran that thing. And then when we got him, you know, it's a funny thing with Ian Wright. You know, I can remember his first ever goal for Arsenal like it was yesterday. I can remember sitting and watching it. Right-footed. He was out to the left. If you're facing goal, he was out to the left. Right foot, it bounced and went in. And I thought, he's not only good, he's lucky. You know, it took a good bounce and still beat the goalkeeper. And I thought, this guy's got something special. There's something about this bloke, you know, because I'd already seen that cup final. And the speed of him and Bright just overrunning, if it was Man United, I think it probably was.
I'm pretty sick because I remember watching it. it. I think he probably is the most liked Arsenal player. I think there may be other players that are equally as liked. Like I couldn't say I liked Ian Wright more than David Rocastle, for example.
Who would you go down the pub with the most? Who do you, if they go, right, you can go down a night out, down the booze. I know you don't drink, but you will this night with one Arsenal player. And you're going to sit down the pub.
Tony Adams, getting back on the.
Tony Adams is. They took his brain out. They took Tony Adams' personality out. They took his brain. They put it over there. They sewed him back up.
Righty, Ray Parlour. They'd all be.
I've heard all Ray Parlour's stories. So have you. I've heard everyone.
I suppose it is Righty, isn't it?
Yeah. You go. Remember the time? I go, yeah, I remember.
He feels like one of us.
Right, he was one of us.
He feels like one of us.
Absolutely, he's exactly like, I think it was Paul Merson that stepped over from the bit. Although Wrighty was never a fan. I'm trying to think who it was that was a fan. Oh God, it will come to me. I was thinking Paul Merson, but it wasn't Paul Merson. There was someone that we had that literally came from being a fan, going every single week, and then one day got discovered, and just the next time he came to the Arsenal. No, it's someone bigger than that. Perry, although that would apply to Perry Groves, but I'm talking about someone that was quite big. I was thinking of Paul Merson, but it might not have been Paul Merson. It might come to me.
We had quite a few players come through that system, like Merson, Rocastle, Paul Davis.
Yeah, Paul Davis. Yeah.
Gus Caesar.
Yeah, Gus Caesar. Kevin Campbell.
Oh, what a great play! Not a shame for him that Ian Wright was there, but Wrighty took so much shine away from Kevin Campbell.
He did. Where did Campbell go after that? He never really took off.
He went to Everton.
Didn't properly take off.
It was Everton.
He was good. He had a career. Don't get me wrong.
He had a career. But yeah, it's. I suppose Wrighty is. It's an interesting question. Everyone talks about what's the greatest Arsenal player ever. No one's ever talking about. Who's the most liked Arsenal player?
Who's the one that we have the most affinity with? And to be fair, even with Wrighty now, the shine comes off. He as he goes on, as inevitably becomes the case, he's part of the establishment now. He's a long, long away from being one of us. He's like 30, 40 years away from being one of us. And he's been part of this establishment now for a long time. So now he kind of says all the right things that you're meant to say, and there's less off the cuff from Wrighty anymore.
He's an older man as well, though. Tony.
He's got all the right opinions and all the right subjects now, and he's like someone's
he's not 25 anymore.
He's not 25. No, of course, there is that.
The Wrighty at 25 would be getting sent off every other week.
It's like Lenny Henry. Lenny Henry, once Don French got hold of him, wasn't the same bloke anymore. Someone's got in his ear. He's not our bloke anymore. He's got all his.
We want our Lenny back.
I want old Lenny back. Yeah. Give me the old Lenny back. Yeah, I used to like the old Lenny.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if someone like over the next 20 years, if someone like Saka, for example, that would be like.
Hasn't got a personality.
I think there's different reasons why you can like a player. So with Wrighty, he had the game. Yeah. He had the game with his feet, and he had the game with the talk.
I'm talking about the man. As much as we could get to know the man.
I think with Saka, what he might have is he can take on the responsibility. If he delivers the big trophies and is the kind of the main man in putting that on the table, I think he would surpass Wrighty in that respect.
I'd like to know more about what he's like as a character. Because they're all media trained now. Right, there was no media training. This was right on the cusp of when, you mustn't say this, and they've got a handler by them.
You're not going to get a player like that again. You're not going to get a player like that anymore.
It's like Hollywood film stars. You try and interview a Hollywood film star now, and there's someone sat there going, you can't ask him that. No, he won't talk. No, sorry, we're going to stop this interview. I'm ever so sorry. You didn't get that with Parkinson back in the 70s and the 80s. So you invite an old bloke on. This is what you get.
You're not going to get a player that just comes out and speaks their mind.
No, not since Roy Keane.
I can't think of one player in the modern game
that goes off script.
I can't think. Maybe Grealish a little bit.
Jack's got some character. Yeah, he's got some character.
But even then, that he's still not really.
No, it's not the same.
Anything. He's not getting fined for comments by the FA.
Ian Wright showed his arse out the stadium changing room windows to everybody. I mean, I didn't enjoy being mooned, but it's, you can't imagine that now.
Do you know there's one thing that Ian Wright did though, and he went down in my estimation.
Oh.
And I love Ian Wright.
Yeah.
And I've never heard anyone else say this before.
Okay. What did he do?
Cup Winners' Cup final. It was the second season where we lost. We lost.
Can you remember?
I think it was Real Zaragoza.
Yeah.
When Seaman got lobbed. When Seaman got lobbed.
When Seaman got lobbed.
When he got lobbed.
Do you know what?
That doesn't even narrow it down that much.
Seaman got lobbed. What sort of thing were you watching? And get back to the football.
And we went 1-0 down.
Yeah.
And John Hartson equalised.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the game. Hartson equalised, and Wrighty was close to him, and Wrighty ran off celebrating as if he had scored the goal.
Oh, right. I never knew that.
It was fucking John Hartson that scored the goal.
Was it from an angle? Yeah. Was it from an angle? Had he played a part in it? Did he assist?
I was stood next to him, but Hartson got the goal. There was no debate as to who got the goal. And Wrighty ran off.
Instead of congratulating Hartson. Yeah. He got used to the adulation, didn't he? He got used to the
I thought that's a bit much.
That's it. That's done it.
So he went from like 100 to like a 99 on that point.
Yeah. And I say actually, now,
so I was going to say, actually, that happened with Thierry Henry as well. When against Ireland, I don't know if you remember against Ireland in a World Cup.
Oh yeah, I do remember against Ireland. He stopped Ireland qualifying for the World Cup. Was it a handball?
It wasn't a handball. It was basketball. I mean, he grabbed it like that, and he went down in my estimation after that as well. Actually, incredible player. But I will never have the affection for him that.
No, after that, no. Because
after that, and a couple other things, how it ended as well, I kind of think.
They're a sporting idol. First and foremost, they're sporting idols. You've got to be sporting. It's as simple as that. And once they lose that, Henry's the one that's going to get the statue outside the Emirates one day.
He's already got it.
He's the one that... Has he even got a statue out there? I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's already there.
Well, when did that go up?
That went down a few years ago.
Did it?
It's up there.
Don't remember seeing it.
It's him. I'm pretty certain it's him sliding on his knees, kind of like doing like this.
Did we used to enter the stadium at a different end to where it was?
I'm not sure if it was there.
You and I went
when we were going.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was there then, but it is. There is a statue. There is a statue.
Okay.
But he's. I kind of went off on Henry a bit, not in terms of his footballing stuff. It was mainly. He started coming out saying some stuff about the club, and I think he was kind of insinuating that he should be manager at one point.
Oh, right. Yeah, he's a great manager, isn't he?
Angle in on that. And what have you done? I really banged in 300 goals for Arsenal, but that really doesn't mean anything in terms of being manager at the club.
Absolutely not. They've got Tyson Fury. They've got Mike Tyson training this new guy that's going to fight. He's never had a boxing match in his life. Yeah, he's training this guy, and they go, "Oh, he's got Mike Tyson training." But
doesn't mean anything.
Who the fuck has Mike Tyson ever trained? why is that good? You've got a novice boxer being trained by a novice trainer. That's going to go really well. But anyway, we're off topic.
Not ideal, but that's okay. Well, talking about topics, let's get this next one up on.
What
we got the banter years.
What are the banter years?
Now, the banter years is basically when I ended up getting a season ticket. Essentially, when we moved to the Emirates. We moved to the Emirates. We didn't win a trophy for 12, 13, 14 years.
Horrible times.
It's a very long time.
And we used to go, for ages, we used to go a goal down, but we couldn't score until we went a goal down first.
Yeah, that's
correct.
We'd
all come out ever so edgy, nervous. It was a completely different atmosphere to Highbury. Totally different atmosphere for the worse. We didn't feel comfortable in that stadium for 10 years.
It took a while. We had players like Senderos.
Oh, God, Philippe Senderos.
I remember going to a Champions League game, right, with another mutual friend of ours, Andrew Oliver, and his missus at the time, and Arsenal had a winger called Louis.
Has AO split up with his missus?
No, it was just a different missus.
They were a lovely couple.
Oh,
okay.
There's a different missus with now. It's great. It was a different missus back there because this is like 20 years ago or whatever.
Okay.
And we had Louis Boa Morte on the wing.
Okay.
And she said this guy, they should call him Rigor Morte. It always just stuck with me. The dross that we had. Almunia, our goalie, for like so many years. And he just always looked like he was caned. He looked like he just smoked something.
Yeah. He looked exactly the same to me. A weedy-looking individual with lank, greasy hair and some stubble. He never was an imposing figure. You know, he's coming up to take his penalty, but his knees are knocking. It's against Almunia. You're not going to hear that, are you?
Not going to happen.
No, so, they were poor years, the later Wenger years.
They were not pleasant, and they tested my mental health.
Yeah.
You know, going week in, week out,
yeah,
and just knowing that you're going to get nothing.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than being a pessimist like you and being proved right every bloody time. It just doesn't help, does it?
Interestingly, I think the club changed a lot of people from fans to customers. And fans,
absolutely they did. And that remains.
Yeah, and fans, I took on the persona of a customer in that, well, I'm buying something now, which is my fault. I'm buying something, I'm paying for something, and I expect something in return. And I'm not only am I buying something, I'm paying like Harrods prices here. I'm paying like Waitrose prices.
Top dollar pricing up at Emirates.
And we're serving up, you know, Happy Shopper. No offense if you used to shop at Happy Shopper.
No, absolutely true. Absolutely true. We were absolutely going nowhere. So they were dark times, and it was kind of getting quite horrible because towards the end of that period coincided with the rise of Arsenal TV. So that vitriol and that, you know, the malcontent was it was there for everybody to see. That if you wanted to see it, it wasn't just at the stadium. Now it's on the internet. You can see.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of fans and I think that's the first time when I started to look at the fans and go, I don't know if I can relate to these people. I don't know if they're my people. I don't know if Arsenal, I had to question it. Is Arsenal my club anymore? And I might have even had this conversation with you going, well, what is it? What is Arsenal? Is it the stadium? Well, no, because the stadium changes and still. Is it the manager? No, because managers come and go. Is it the players? No, because they come and go. And I got to that point of almost like an existential crisis going, what is it that I support? Okay, you support Arsenal, but what is it? It's not these fans, because these guys I'm seeing on Arsenal TV, I wouldn't go down for a pint with any of these guys. You know, I really, really wouldn't. And I looked at the players. I can't relate to these players anymore because they were mostly crap. Wenger was coming to the end of his time, but even if Wenger left, so you know, your allegiance can't be.
Owners nowhere to be seen.
It was what? Sorry.
Owners nowhere to be seen.
Owners nowhere to be seen. David Dean,
you know, there's not like a David Dean. There's no connection. And that hurt the team. Is that you're right? There were no real connections being built.
Nothing to hold on to. And at the same time, we were exactly as you say. We're not fans anymore. We're customers now, and we should be grateful that we can get a ticket and have to jump through this hoop and be a member of that thing and sign up to this. And if you're lucky, we'll let you have a ticket. But then you better sit down. You better no stand. You sit down. And if you have a fag, out you go. And I thought that's such a culture change. And this is really, you know, going back to the culture, I guess, that we're talking about. That was the culture change there. And I think this is why a lot of clubs don't want to, like Man United, they don't want to get rid of Old Trafford. They've seen what we lost. I think they've got some, especially those away fans that you got to know a little bit. They travel around and they see these new mega stadiums, and they're not a good thing. West Ham fans you talk to diehard West Ham fans about the London stadium. No, mate. No.
I think you're right, and I think the club, like you said, they turned us into customers, and they kind of trained us. But there's a whole generation of Arsenal fans that became like spreadsheet merchants because it's all about the money and top four and and this and that, and you do think, well, what do we stand for now?
Yeah. What am I supporting? What is it?
What am I supporting? And that was the frustration that I had, was that, you know, we're paying this money, we're selling all our best players, and it felt like you were being lied to.
We were lied to. We were lied
to because it only became
lied to by Wenger. We were lied to by the board.
And I completely agree, because they never really came out and explained things correctly. But it's an interesting kind of segue.
We were promised we would compete, and we never competed for 10 years.
Oh, 100%, yeah, and even longer.
We were promised we will compete. We will compete at the highest level. We might not win. We will compete at the highest level. No, we didn't. For 10 years, we did not compete at the highest level. We absolutely didn't. And to cap it all, then Spurs nearly went and won the Champions League, didn't they? Oh, that was a close one.
That was a close. That was like my Man United watch and you singing.
That was close.
Blue is the colour.
Spurs nearly won the Champions League. Oh no! So close.
I want to change the subject now. This is going to be the last one, because I have to go walk Jolene in about 10-15 minutes. So,
Jolene.
So we've got the rebirth, the new Arsenal almost.
Yeah, the new Arsenal.
Coming through now, where there is a cultural connection developing between the fans and the team. The owners now own 100% of the club. So I only realized this when they became 100% owners. And I think my brother actually works in finance, said, look, when the Kroenkes owned like 70% or 60% of the club, they were never going to invest in the club, because all they're doing is increasing the value of the person. Yeah. And so from a business point of view, I understand that. But as a fan, it's hard to take. So it's no coincidence that the club have been really investing money now quite heavily the last 4 or 5
years. Well, it feels like we're trying to win. It feels like we're trying to win.
Well, there's a cultural change. There's a cultural change, I think, within the club. And Mikel Arteta said this when he was assistant manager at Man City. Yeah. And then when he became manager, he would say, you know, I've seen that things are not right. I can tell that something's going wrong there.
Do you ever see him as a leader when he was like this level of leader, when he was a player?
When he was a player?
I knew he was a man of, but not that level of leadership. I never saw
that. I saw him week in, week out. When I had the season ticket, he was the captain, you know, he was playing. And it would never have occurred to me that he would be that level.
No, nor me. Slipped right under my radar. Even when he became manager, because it was just another. Yeah,
I think a lot of the players he played with, like Walcott and Wilshere and some others, have said, "Oh yeah, we're not surprised he became a manager." But as fans, you don't see what goes on at half time, do you? You don't see all that. No. And so he learned under Wenger, and then he went and spent like 3-4 years with Pep. Yeah. And he nearly got the job when Emery got it. He nearly got the job then. And then the Arsenal...
Count Dracula.
Well, yeah, Count Dracula. And basically, Arsenal lost their nerve and was like, it's just too big a risk.
It was too big for him. He's better leveled down. It's like David Moyes. You know, it's like one of those characters. And he's actually won a European title, hasn't he? Since he's won a cup, hasn't he? I'm trying to think what it is he's won. He has won silverware elsewhere. Emery,
Yeah, no, he's won loads of. That's why we brought him. He's won the UEFA Cup.
He was the UEFA Cup specialist.
Yeah, UEFA Cup specialist. Yeah, and I mean, he had to go at the end. It was getting ridiculous how bad it was. Yeah. And then we went back to Mikel. And it just feels like everything's kind of changed from how we do business, how we develop players.
Edu's quite a big player in this, isn't he?
I think he's become more and more of a big influence behind the scenes on things. One thing I like about Edu, I think, is that if you've got this, he looks the part. And I think if you're going into a business deal or a business arrangement, you're trying to get something over the line, there's millions of pounds at stake. You want him going in. He's smooth, he's suave,
Yeah, he is.
he's
Yeah,
sharp,
he is.
he looks the
Yeah,
part.
absolutely. I still wish David Dean was there, though. I still want David Dean to come back. Like, to me, he'd be the missing. He must be 90 by now. I don't know how old.
Yeah,
he
I
is
mean,
now.
he tried to sell the club out from under everyone.
Well, you know who sold us out was Lady. What's her name? Lady
Nina
Bullshit.
Bracewell.
Oh, that was the biggest.
She said she was lied to, and it's all water under the bridge now.
Yeah.
That's all
Let's
kind
look
of
forward,
happened.
Let's look forward.
Let's look forward. It's rebirth.
Yeah.
Not
It's funny.
reincarnation.
We're typical Arsenal fans. We're talking about the rebirth going forward. Going that she sold us out down the river. That's still
My fault.
Bracewell Smith.
It's in our culture to continuously look back.
I don't know. Sure, yeah. My son Sean has now taken over. He's the main Arsenal man in the house now. Sean follows it religiously follows the Arsenal. And I feel guilty because he strikes up comedy. He goes, "Oh, what about so and so playing on the left?" And I'm not as into it as I was, But and it's crazy. I've drifted away before and came back, and I think it's kind of like ebbs and flows. And if anything will get me back into it, it'll be him. But it's great to see the next generation. Whilst that boy made me buy him a Germany shirt, I put a Germany shirt on that boy's back. But at least he's a gooner. And he's properly hooked as a gooner. Properly hooked, totally engaged. He could name the starting 11. If we're playing at the weekend, he'd go, well, probably Dad, the starting 11 will be this. And this is who's going to be on the bench. And it shames me a little bit that I can't engage on that. I have to get my phone out and start looking him up. Oh, that's right, son. He's ever so good. but I can feel what's going on. I can feel that we're on the right path now. It just feels better. And when I do watch Arsenal, it really, like what did we win recently? We scored in plus 12 minutes against Manchester United.
That was Man United, and in the Charity Shield.
When did Arsenal score a goal in 12 minutes, in any minutes of injury time? We've been teams that we would give up, the head would go down a little bit.
We normally let a goal in.
Yeah, more likely to let another one in. Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got, that plus 12 thing that really heartened me. Extra time, 90 plus 12, Arsenal score again.
Yeah.
Or twice, in fact.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of going for it now, and Arteta did come in, and he did, regardless of what happens with him going forward, and there have been several times where I wanted him gone because it hasn't been plain sailing at all. It's only really the last 18 months that it's kicked on. But there's a cultural change. He's instigated a cultural change, and the owners have bought into it. Because for years I used to think, Stan Kroenke must be the only billionaire without an ego.
Yeah. He's happy to take part of Stan.
He's happy to be there.
Happy to be there, Stan.
Just a voyeur. Just watching in the corner.
That's not, that. Do you know what? That still cuts, doesn't it? Mourinho's comments on Wenger. That word, voyeur,
has so many connotations.
Many connotations. Yeah.
But they're interesting stuff. Look, I've got to wrap this up now because, like I said, I've got some errands I need to run.
We've done an hour.
No, we've done an hour, which is great because. I think we could easily go on for another hour, probably. So
easily,
we've got enough of these in us.
I thought, we'll never think of anything. We go, Henri was good, wasn't he, in the old days? And you'll go, that's right, Tom. So what's on next week? That's how I thought it was going to be like that, but it's been absolutely fantastic. Well, from my point of view,
I've really enjoyed, because I'm usually doing these on my own. Talking about the build up or whatever, and
well, you do it great. Let me tell you, Cam, I'll be same thing with me. If it was lackluster, I would tell you. I'd risk our friendship on it. I'd put the honesty first. Or I watched you send me the link, and I started watching them. I'm going, that's really good. And I think don't try and change it to what other people do, like 3 or 4 lads bantering round. Do your thing, because your thing is spot on. I watched it. Sean watched it. We both thought it was great.
Well,
Really great.
I'd love to do this again with you. And
Yeah.
you know, if you want to get Sean in, we can get Sean in sometime.
Sean's the next generation. Have him on next.
Yeah, okay. We'll
Have
get Sean.
2 generations of monks.
The monks are taking over.
It's the monk cast with featuring Cam in brackets.
Yeah.
Cam Casmeri in brackets. Anyway, yeah, that's been fantastic, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No. Until next time, thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you very, very soon. Up the Arsenal.
Goodbye from me. Up the Arsenal.
Okay. That's